You mentioned AI. How do you feel that that fits into Indigenous studies programs or into social work?
Well, I find a lot of value in AI and machine learning. I mean, first of all, I was trained as a quantitative researcher, so I've had a lot of experience assembling numbers and working with equation modeling and those kinds of things back in the day when I was a PhD student. I understand how that works. I understand how you can feed a computer information, and you can come up with some really high probabilities that something may or may not work or make sense. And it's like, again, it's like the machine is like an animal. It kind of gives us a sense of something that we can't do very quickly. There's no way. I mean, when I first started out doing my statistics courses in my PhD program, and I did a number of them, I mean, everything was done by a hand calculator. I had to sit there and do all my hand calculations until finally, I moved on to the period where I started doing these more complex models. Then I had to use what they call the VAX. Most people have never even heard of a VAX, but it's this large computing center that it could only handle so much data at a time. So all the PhD students from all the different disciplines had to get into line, into queues, and feed their data into there to have it do its manipulations of the different factors that you were analyzing, right, to give them some kind of number values, and then to find out, whether what you were exploring was significant or not significant. So when I look at, the computers, what AI is doing now, it's incredible. I mean, the power of the machine to search, the web and whatever you can give it, and to analyze that information and put something together so quickly. It's solving so many problems for us right now. I mean, it's just read an article recently about the use of an antibiotic, a new antibiotic for human beings, and it was something like there were like 60,000 or so many thousand molecules that were involved that needed to be studied, and to find out how people would react to this particular kind of medicine. Well, it would have taken the estimates. It took the machine, a few days to do the calculations, which would have taken a team of the most talented, doctors and researchers probably 2 years to figure out. Right? This is what we're talking about. We're talking about this capacity that exists that we don't even know the extent of it right now. So, what about how does it work with Indigenous social work and studies? Well, I've looked at it, and I've talked with some young women out in Toronto who are AI experts. They've developed a mental health sort of approach to using AI and avatars. They contacted me because they read some of my work. Their AI system picked up some of my work, so they contacted me and said, "How would you like to work with us?" And I said, "Well, tell me what you do." So they said they're using AI and these avatars and getting this literature that they get and feeding that into the AI system, and they're using it in rural and Indigenous communities. And I said, well, that's interesting. And they said, we're using some of your stuff. And I said, okay. And they said every time that this avatar of this old grandmother with braids on who can speak perfect Ponca, for example, speak perfect Arikara, looks like grandmother, and if you heard the voicing that they can do, AIs can, they can sound just like and a lot of these musicians or singers, they can compose. Right? That's how good they are. And then you've got the person sitting in front of you. You've got grandma, and your Katua grandmother sitting there in front of you, and she's smiling at you, and she's beaming at you, right? Just like you are now. I don't know if you're real because I'm seeing you here. This, on this, trans. I don't know if maybe you could be AI for all I know. I don't know. See? The way the brain works, but you're talking to me and I'm having a conversation with you through this system. And so if you had, and I was telling these PhD students, I said, if you had this grandmother that could speak the right language, she had these algorithms running all the time. So as you have your hand on your face and you're nodding your head, slowly like this, she's picking all that up and it's coming back in, and she's running an algorithm. Every time you respond to a particular word, a certain frequency in the language, the way things are said, the intonation, those kinds of things, grandma gets better and better and better at reading you. Pretty soon, grandma Yeah, she knows exactly where to go to kind of touch and to support you, right? The other thing that grandma does is she doesn't get bored. She doesn't lose focus. She's with you. Her eyes, her facial expressions, her body language all signal to you what you need to hear. It's no different than uh, people calling a complete stranger on the suicide line and getting them to talk them out of committing suicide or harming themselves. Only now you have something that is way more sophisticated, way more accurate, way more touching to you as a human being. There's a ton. It's unbelievable to me. I think the the um, the amount of I don't know promise and potential it has to help us, in our fields and with Indigenous folks as well. If you can imagine a grandmother who could speak the language or have memories that are accurate, or have ceremonial knowledge, or have any of these kinds of things that gets better and better and better each time the algorithm runs, and they learn how to transmit it better and better and better each time they teach. I mean, it's that's just one example that I could draw from Indigenous studies and social work. So
How do you approach the topic with your students?
same way, I say, I give them the example. I've written a little bit about it, and I said, and I ask them questions. It's more probing, like, what do you think? I describe the scenario. I talk about what AI does, what machine learning does, and how it can get better and better each time it does it, right? And how at some point, if we had these kinds of um, you know AI machine learning sort of, I don't know, social workers, it could probably lead to transformation much more quickly than just a person, because it takes a person a long time to kind of get through that. The person can be traumatized, kind of a secondhand sort of trauma can happen to a social worker or whatever, and they can get off track, or they can get bored, or whatever it is. But an AI social worker, is going to be a lot more, you know, um, I guess, tuned in, really tuned in. That in that sense, theoretically, what would be happening is that healing would be happening a lot quicker. A lot more people would be getting a sense of themselves, and a sense of well-being much earlier, right? Which would produce a lot of, I think, a lot more creativity, a lot more happiness, a lot more compassion, a lot more transformation for people. So that's how I kind of approach it with social workers. I said it doesn't mean social workers are going to be out of business. I think what we need to do is develop this hybrid sort of working with the machine, and we've done that already. We've done that with old videotapes when we tape having sessions with someone. Then we go back and look at it and say, well, this is what you could have done better. This is what you could have done better. What you can do. We've been using that kind of technology all along, but now we have a huge capacity to do it even more accurately, much more quicker, much more compassionately, and so on.